I'm about as real as they come.
All my beats tailored by Darold. House Digital.
Maserati Rick in Detroit, convertible bird in Miami. Graduated summa cum laude, strip club made a tsunami. Carlton Hines with the ball game, Grateful Edmonds with the snowflakes, Craig Pettis in the M-Town, Sal Magluta with the boat game, Falcone with the cocaine, like Freeway Ricky with the plug game, like Monster Cody in South Central, Larry Davis from close range.
Your father was he was pretty active up in Harlem, right?
Right, yeah, his name was also Ferg.
Ferg, he passed, yeah, because I heard his name before I even heard about you. So when it was like ASAP Ferg, I was like, that's, and then I was like, yeah, it was like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, him and my, like, Puff, it was, like, real cool with my pops. He did the Bad Boy logo, and Andre Harrell, you know, they kind of, like, Heavy D, all of them, they kind of, like, started off together. I guess he was, like, the artist of their day. Like, he was the go-to person for logos or, like, to get T-shirts done. Because at that time, they ain't know, like, you know, that time, like, big Jewish companies was printing the shirts and, like, doing all the artwork. And you had to, like, have crazy bread to do that stuff. And him, he was, like, in the projects right there. Like, you could go...
Check it out, cuz. Yo, MTV Rap, Saturday at 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. Eastern. Join me, Ferg Ferguson, as I talk to the toughest rappers and show the freshest videos. This week on Yo MTV Rap, we travel to Dapper Dan's all-night boutique with special guest Eric B, plus videos by Grandmaster Flash and the 2 Live crew. Yo, MTV Rap, every Saturday at 10 a.m. and again at 10 p.m. Eastern. Yo, MTV Rap.
ASAP Ferg is part of a long line of Harlem creatives carrying out the neighborhood's history of pushing culture and art forward. Ferg's father, the late Darold Ferguson Sr., ran his own shop in Harlem, printing shirts and designing logos for hip-hop icons like Heavy D and Diddy. Before that, Ferg Sr. worked for Daniel Day, better known as Dapper Dan, one of Harlem's living legends and the man who single-handedly brought high fashion.
Check it out, cuz. Yo, MTV Rap, Saturday at 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. Eastern. Join me, Ferg Ferguson, as I talk to the toughest rappers and show the freshest videos. This week on Yo MTV Rap, we travel to Dapper Dan's all-night boutique with special guest Eric B, plus videos by Grandmaster Flash and the 2 Live crew. Yo, MTV Rap, every Saturday at 10 a.m. and again at 10 p.m. Eastern. Yo, MTV Rap.
ASAP Ferg is part of a long line of Harlem creatives carrying out the neighborhood's history of pushing culture and art forward. Ferg's father, the late Darold Ferguson Sr., ran his own shop in Harlem, printing shirts and designing logos for hip-hop icons like Heavy D and Diddy. Before that, Ferg Sr. worked for Daniel Day, better known as Dapper Dan, one of Harlem's living legends and the man who single-handedly brought high fashion to the hood.
That happened there. I had an opportunity with, well, not really had an opportunity, but we had Puff Daddy, D Ferg, and them the same gang. They had Puff Daddy in that circle. Right. He was in their circle for a minute because my man, D Ferg was the one who did that cat for Uptown. I don't know if you know their logo. It's the cat. Okay. Yeah. So D Ferg, he's a good artist and all that. Him and Mike Cock, and they did that logo for him. So he got to meet the kid Puffy and the kid Puffy. Him and the kid Puffy was cool or whatever. And he was in that same gang circle for a minute. But I don't know whatever happened. And he was right there. I mean, I didn't even recognize his talent for what he was capable of doing. You know, if he wasn't talking about.
Hey, shit got Popalot. I'm back on MOBB business. We headed to NYC with it. Uptown. Money making Manhattan. Now, in a quest to try to put a face where every street legend y'all should know and y'all probably heard of, we are finally able to get to one of the most iconic and semi-mysterious personalities to come out of the game in Harlem around that time. And anytime we can cross the streets, fashion, and music, it's always going to be my pleasure. So with that being said, today we are covering the world-renowned D Ferg. A lot of y'all might know him as ASAP Ferg's father. Some of y'all might know him as the guy that created the iconic Bad Boy logo for Bad Boy Records. And if you hip to the streets, you might know that some people would call him the link between Harlem and Queens. Now, when you begin to talk about a dude like D. Ferg, his impact was felt in so many ways of urban culture. It's hard to figure out how you're going to start, but I'm just going to tie in the street connection for a lot of people. Now, back in the days in Harlem, when I say back in the days, I'm talking about the 90s and even the 80s, Harlem really wasn't known as a gang town. And from my earliest memories, I remember the dudes from Manhattan or Harlem really getting money, where the term money making Manhattan comes in, and really being creative. And you can look at the bar that KRS-One used in The Bridge Is Over when describing Manhattan. Manhattan keeps on making it. And that statement to me would describe D. Ferg perfectly. And when a lot of people go on to explain him, they just say that he was Harlem. Now, I spoke about the time when D. Ferg was on these streets and saying that really the city wasn't about gangs, but Harlem has always kind of been about crews. Guys like the NFL gang on 139th that consisted of Big L and a few other people. Then you would have guys like the Best Out gang that consisted of Dame and Biggs that would go on to create Rockefeller. But it was a slew of these kind of crews running through Harlem. And a lot of times they was throwing parties and I guess really trying to see who had the best parties, who was the freshest. And D. Ferg just happened to be part of one of the biggest crews going around at that time, which was called the Same Gang. And a lot of outlets would go on to credit him along with Gene Deal with starting that Same Gang crew. Now, I want to say just being from the city give you a sense of originality, but D. Ferg had an extra burst of that where he had a clothing line before a lot of the urban clothing lines that was popping. And I'm not even talking about shit like Rockaway and Baby Fat. I'm talking about Cross Color and Used and Carl Kanai around those days. He had a line called Ferg 54. And that just kind of gives you a glimpse of his vision and his creativity. But his hustle, he would also be the main go-to guy for having t-shirts pressed in bulk, where now you can go to the mall and get that shit done. But just imagine in 1986, 87 or something like that. So with him being that ahead of the curve, it would lead stars of the time to flock to him. Guys like Puff Daddy and Heavy D, who I would be the first to probably say don't get enough credit for probably being Puff Daddy's mentor. His hustle and his eye for fashion would eventually get him a job with hip-hop fashion icon Dapper Dan, who was pretty much styling all of the stars and athletes back in this time. And with being in the streets, you connected to the streets. But D. Ferg was connected on a whole nother level with the who's who's, because you can watch interviews of guys like Harlem Kingpin Roger Barnes, where they would name drop D. Ferg and talk about his influence on the game and say how he's Harlem. You would even hear guys like Gangsta Lou, who was running around the town doing his thing with Mob Style and AZ. The clip in the beginning of the video shows you the relationship that he had with Alpo, as Alpo had that situation, and he went on to get D. Ferg. And some people would even call him the connection to Queens, like I said earlier, as he would be linked to Kenneth Supreme McGriff. So when you put in a list together of who's at that time, D. Ferg name is definitely going to appear on that list. And I would say that it's ironic, but it's not even that his son is pretty much continuing to push that tradition in Harlem, speaking on A$AP Ferg and the A$AP Mob. And I couldn't even begin to imagine how far they would be when I'm talking about just the Fergusons, A$AP and his dad, had his dad not passed away at the young age of 40 in 2003. Roger Barnes was speaking in an interview about how he battled with dialysis, and he would pass away prematurely on October 17th of that year. So I want to be the first to say RIP to D Ferg, one of the stand-up guys coming out of Harlem. Y'all make sure y'all hit the red subscribe button right under this video so y'all know when this real trill spill shit is dropping. Y'all get in the comment box. Y'all flooded. If y'all got any memories about D Ferg, if y'all was in the city around that time, we want to know. Y'all let me know what cities we need to go to, what stories we need to cover, what gangsters we missed, what topics we got wrong, all of that. Y'all get at me on IG, Twitter, POP_A_LOT. And y'all know I'm going to pop up anywhere mob shit going on. Mob, gang,